Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome. So we're going to be talking about the transformative role that SON plays in the migration of networks to 5G and cloud. From what we heard and saw over the last day and a half, I think we can claim today that SON has finally arrived. And 2016 is the year that SON has seen mass introduction and more importantly, gained the acceptance of operators worldwide. So if there are any historians here that want to write the history of SON, I think you could look at what happened in 2016, and that's going to stay there in history for a long time. Speaking of history, if you look at any technological breakthroughs over the last few centuries, it always took a team or someone to go against the grain to look for a breakthrough or look for changes in how things were done in the past or historically how things were done. And I think for SON, such a breakthrough happened when KDDI introduced their LTE network in iPhones for the first time, and they made automation an essential part of the launch of LTE and iPhones. They could not believe that they could have a experience for users who are moving from circuit switch technology to voice to LTE and OLT and sustain that experience without automation. So they challenged Nokia to build a centralized automation system. It wasn't called SON at that time, and back in 2012. And we responded to the challenge, and it's now what is called the first centralized SON system in Japan, and it's running till today, supporting about 300,000 cells and providing various use cases that still sustains their LTE network. So that's what happened, or that triggered the worldwide adoption of SON and the belief that automation could be something very useful. I think today we are in a position where SON is able to drive similar breakthroughs in this era of migrating networks from what we know networks as it exists today to what it would look like with the migration to 5G and to the cloud. And trust me, the cellular network that we know today, that we see today, is not going to look anything like it does today once we're done with migration to 5G and to Cloud RAN. It's going to look completely different. It's going to be very disruptive. So we've seen many analyst reports projecting when 5G will happen, what aspects of 5G will happen first. And I believe that the path to 5G will take a lot of twists and turns with uncertainties on when, how, and what aspects of 5G radio actually gets deployed. And so while we go through all that transformation, we need an anchor, right? We need something that watches the transformation of technology and makes sure that we build the right automation and we put the right automation in place and build in the right technology and techniques and processes that takes us over this disruption. So I think SON will become that anchor, and I think we're all in a position to make history again by making SON the automation engine that allows us to make this transformation as seamless as possible. One of the interesting analyst reports that we came across recently asked different MNOs, when do you believe we'll be transitioning to 5G radios, right? When will 5G radios be completely deployed? And only 8% of the MNOs believe that 5G radios will be fully deployed by 2020, 8%. About 45% of the MNOs believe that somewhere between let's say 2023 and 2024, or let's say 2020 to 2024, it'll be deployed, and about 45% of the MNOs thought it'll happen only after 2024. So that's a long time where all this transition has to happen, and we can finally say we are 5G radio ready. So I think, as I said, we are in a transformative phase, and SON is clearly going to be the anchor that leads us through this transformative phase. So with that, let me introduce the panelists and see what they have to say. By the way, I'm Murali Ranganathan. I run the SON business product management function in Nokia. And here in our panel today, we have Vincent Derscon from Orange. Vincent, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? You've been in panels over the last days, so I think most of the folks here know you. But go ahead.
Yeah. Good morning. So Vincent Diascorn. I'm working in Orange Group entities, supporting affiliates in radio optimization, and for a few years now, I'm leading the project on SON for the group. So I will have a presentation to present our status. So you will see next.
And we have Andrea from Telecom Italia.
Andrea Buldorini. Yes, I work in the wireless access, radio propagation and self-organizing network department. I'm I also represent a team in various standard organization, 3GPP RAN and NGMN, and some NGMN projects related to SON and operational efficiency, also in the past.
Thank you. And we have Jarno from Elisa.
Yeah, good morning everybody. Jarno Niemelä from Elisa. Elisa, and currently looking at the automation activities related to radio access network and core network at Elisa.
Thank you. So let's start with Vincent. Vincent, I know Orange has gone through a lot of transformations and you're looking forward to 5G and SON becoming an essential element of that. What, in your opinion, are some of the transformative roles that SON will play in this realization of the promises of 5G?
So I'm quite sure that before 5G, SON will be really helpful. Right? So first of all, then with 5G, we have discussed in the last day, and this morning we are continuing to discuss lots of disruptive evolution that SON will have to tackle, and we help to tackle. So yesterday there was a big discussion concerning network slicing. I think that SON will be a key element to help the orchestration, or do the orchestration, or organize or help the configuration of these slides and tune the configuration of these slides. So it's a big disruptive way of functioning compared to what we have today with 3G and 4G, for which I see a great opportunity for SON to have some orchestration. Then I think that it's not SON who will help lots 5G, it's 5G who will push SON to move a lot, right? Because today the SON that we have is not at all ready to cope with 5G with 5G topics. So we are discussing about SON for RAN, dedicated on features, dedicated on radio stuff, and with virtualization, with network slicing, with lots of things. In fact, the radio part may be not the big problem of SON in 5G.
Yeah, certainly. Jarno or Andrea, any comments to add? Top of what Vincent said. Okay, let's kind of address another aspect here, which everybody's talked about, for over the last day, and it's been a very important aspect of cloud, not only from a C-RAN perspective or Cloud RAN perspective, but generally when you look at everything moving to the cloud, elasticity management is one of the huge aspects of making hardware available when needed, right? Without having to forklift something or getting hardware to where it needs to be. The whole promise of C-RAN is that we can add hardware at will, delete hardware at will, and that's something that's important. Again, Jarno, what aspects of SON do you think can influence this cloud elasticity management?
Yeah, I would say if we start from the definition of elastic cloud management, so you pretty soon realize that for every changes in a cloud provisioning, deprovisioning is basically autonomic. So that's a fundamental part of elastic cloud management. It's a little bit following up Vincent's talk about in 5G probably with cloud implementations, you mandate. It's mandatory to have SON, or I would like to say in more general way, it's autonomous network functions there that will actually enable this. From hardware perspective, of course, then what cloud enables us to have is centralized baseband processing. But I think you still need radios. Right? So you still need radios there, and as the chairman pointed out that in New York there are still permanent permanent locations where you really have the radios on there. But that's with cloud basically possible that you will deprovision the capacity out of there and then probably use it somewhere else. And saying that, it needs to be very dynamic.
Right. Yeah, good point. Any questions from the audience around these 2 points that we just talked about, the transformative role and the whole elasticity management aspects? Well, if not, let's move on, and we'll hit the questions at the end as well.
So one question.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Just here we go.
Good morning, Andy Sutton from BT. My question is about the organisation of operators in our industry. Given the capability of SON and the need for network-wide SON, how are we structured organisationally in terms of implementation teams, planning teams, operational boundaries, outsourcing? How does the industry need to evolve to really make the use of SON capability in 5G?
Let's take that.
Yeah, I can discuss a little bit about how the organization is evolving. So initially, in terms of organization, it was more seen as a big threat than something else, because indeed each team has its own way of doing and didn't want really to change. When SON arrived in the market, it's dedicated on RAN. And it's seen by every team as if the optimization team wanted to have the power on everything else. And so they said, we have a tool that we want you to put and adapt to it. And we will do automatically, we don't need you anymore. So it is globally the picture that we had in Orange 1 year ago, 1 year and a half ago when we started this project. Now there has been some evolution in this process. So indeed, it's more the optimization teams who are dealing with activities because they are the one focused on the feature to be provisioned today. And we see that we are facing some problem with IT teams today to make them work with us and not against us. So in terms of organization, it's a change of the balance currently in favor of the optimization team organization. And we will see that with the cloud, the balance will change in the other way, because it will be the IT teams who will have some kind of a power to provide resources, to provide everything. So today, when you discuss with IT teams about these problems, they say, okay, how many virtual machines do you want? Which is the amount of power that you need? And I provide you that, and I forget it, and I move to another problem. And if you say, okay, I want an additional resource, it's a full process of, depending on the country, it can take quite a long time. So they are not so involved today, and they need to be a little bit more involved. And in the scope of Cloud RAN, they will be the center of provisioning of the resource for much more. And they will need to talk a little bit more of radio than what they are talking today. Yeah. Hopefully, Cloud RAN is not yet a reality. Yeah. So we still have a little bit of time to make it happen. So today we are more working to ensure that CSON enter in the room and be really used and really deployed and observed as mandatory, not only seen but also observed based on experience as mandatory, and then it will be like all the tools. We will need to make it enter and be understood by IT people.
So make software the language that brings together the IT folks and the radio folks, right? So back during the web revolution days, we used to call the people that dealt with telephony as the bellheads, and the people that understood the network as the netheads. And we thought at that time the bellheads and netheads would never understand each other, and here we are today, and there's no bellhead anymore. They're all netheads. So is that a similar transformation we're looking at here between the radio heads and not the remote radio heads, but the radio heads and the IT heads, I guess. But let's see. So I think clearly there has to be the convergence and people agreeing and understanding how commonly these products have to be deployed and maintained and supported. Go ahead, Jaro.
Yeah, I totally agree on that one. And we have actually started this journey already a few years ago in a point of view that we have been developing automation for the run operations. And basically, the process is quite simple. So you have the run operation experts, run experts, and then you have the IT guys, and they really start to have to talk with each other. And now, since we have been faced the same thing in optimization point of view, when we started developing our own SON tool. So what we had OSS guys, we had radio heads, and then we had IT guys. And what we had to do is that we really had to concentrate on finding common language with these guys. So it basically meant that we had to adapt, as a radio guy, we have to adapt OSS stories, we have to adapt to the IT world, but also they will have to adapt to the new areas in that sense. And back a couple of weeks ago, even our graphic designer for the UE started to talk about scrambling code. So they adapt.
Yeah.
It's just a question that you need to create the framework for that, that the information will actually change.
Yeah, but it's a framework in the organization that you have to organize, that you have to put in place.
Yeah.
And I was expecting when I started this CSON project that in Orange we already had some automation work and some discussion between IT guys and radio people. And I was surprised to see that even if we have years of optimization and years of work with IT guys, we are still in a silo. Even if officially we try to fight against it, the organization in affiliates are happy with the silo organization. It's simple to work with. So
hopefully technology will fix that.
Go back to that.
We'll use SON as the vehicle again.
It's just that with Cloud Run, it's not possible anymore.
Exactly.
So it's not exactly CSON in this port. It's Cloud Run. It's the IT guys will deal with BBU resources. Yeah. So they will have to understand it. And we will have to be understandable also on radio side.
Yeah. So it's a very good exercise.
Yeah, it's a good exercise, and in fact, it's from my perspective, it can be also a tool to facilitate the communication, because it will be easier to say, okay, the SON on radio perspective is asking for more carrier, is asking for more throughput, is asking for more, and in the IT perspective, it's translating automatically. It's asking for more process, it's asking for more RAM, for more storage and things like that. So it can be an helper, an enabler to facilitate this communication.
Right, certainly. Okay, let's move on here. So another element in the middle that we missed when we talked about radio and the VM and the allocation of cloud resources on the fly. The other kind of elephant in the middle is the database, right? The databases are going to shrink. Well, there'll be transformational changes in how we store data, how we retrieve data. So Andrea, a question to you. Again, SON lives by data, right? Good data comes in, good decisions are made, SON does its job. And when you have a wealth of data sources, and hopefully the cloud transformation will allow more data sources to be stored in common databases. So how, in your view, how do you see SON benefiting from shared databases, shared data frameworks, when hopefully all the data comes into one location that everybody can access and act on and produce results? How do you see SON benefiting from that?
Yeah, I think we have seen this week, yesterday in particular, the importance of putting together different sources of data, especially in the context of CEM. If we want to target customer experience, we have to analyze different sources. But starting from the very bottom, putting together PM and tracing is already putting data in the cloud. Then we can use CDR. We can already today get information from outside our network to have a better understanding of the network performance and the customer experience. So this is already in place. Probably we are not still fully aware of it, but this is a track that's already started. And team is quite committed to make this happen. We are putting, we are having a consistent effort in trying to deploy solution that could ease this aggregation. And then 5G. First of all, what's 5G? Because for us, 5G is not only new radio access technology. Existing mobile broadband with carrier aggregation, especially if you have some spectrum available, plus NB-IoT, plus vehicular VTV, VTX, this is already 5G. Most of the services targeted by 5G could be achieved with such technology. So 5G is more a concept, is more a framework with several technologies and with automation already in place. So we should not wait for 2025 to say, okay, we are in 5G era. This is already now or in a short time frame. And there we have these new services that have will be sources for new data and also opportunity for new use cases. But the point is, we are speaking about SON, so we are speaking about changing the network and acting on the network. So we have to close the loop. Right. You said we have to access the data. Today, the main use case is collecting data for service assurance, for customer relationship, and so on. But if we want to close the loop on the network, especially on the radio, we need to open this silo and to close the loop quite soon. So this is the first challenge. And another point, maybe secondary at this stage, is whether it could be a good opportunity to feed this data with the domain-specific data. So SON is also elaborating, is also having a specific knowledge of the network. Is such kind of data useful to be put and to be shared in a cloud? So this is something that still to be considered.
Certainly, yeah, thank you. Andrea, Vincent or Jarno, anything to add to that? I think the benefit here again is the latency, right? So we go to DSON today because it's fast. We need certain actions to be performed very fast in the network, and CSON cannot do it, so DSON has to fulfill that role. If the layer 3 processing elements are sitting in the cloud and you can readily capture the layer 3 messages, extract information from it, put it on a database that's sitting on a server that's very close to where SON is running, then the lines are blurred, right, between CSON and DSON. I think that will be another big advantage as well, where, I always considered SON to be a tax on radio call processing, right? A radio should be focusing on doing its job, which is, setting up connections and maintaining the connections and performing handovers and making sure, throughput's maintained, and somebody else has to worry about what's going wrong and fixing it as it goes wrong as quickly as possible. So to me, DSON was always a kind of a misnomer in the sense that, okay, we're stealing some cycles away from the true value of call processing or the true need for call processing. Anyway, that's a discussion for another day. Let me kind of get to another question here real quick. Another aspect of 5G that, oh, sorry, is there a question back? Oh, okay, time. Okay. Thank you. So another aspect of 5G that's not talked about a lot in the radio circles is cognitive network management, right? If you look at the network management side of 5G, the NGNM and those folks are talking about cognitive network management. So question to you, Jarno, how do you see SON moving from what it is today, which is reactive, right? KPI is already degraded, an alarm has already happened. We then recover or detect that and then try to recover the system or prevent the problem from occurring again or improve the KPI by virtue of a configuration change. I think all the work we've done today, it's great, but it's still reactive. We need to move from reactive to a proactive mode, which is the next step, and then eventually to the cognitive thinking and self-learning. So how do you see that transforming, Jarno, in your opinion?
Yeah, this learning capability for an algorithm for an autonomic entity is one of the key things. Obviously, and if you look at the history, so what we have in LTE, the SON is pretty trivial. So we have a simple rules there. When we have a CSON algorithms, those rules are actually very simple. We don't have currently this kind of learning capability in our networks. And that could be that in 5G, there will be some parts that will include as an inherent property this learning capability. But in the end of the day, you need to start learning. Computers need to start learning this. And where we are today, okay, we talk about machine learning algorithms and so on. We have our own pilots on that one. So I made this kind of query that, okay, what if we feed all the LTE counters there? Can you feed it? Okay, 27,000 counters. Okay, we can fit only 100. We can do it 24/7. 27,000 parameters. Right. So that gives a perspective. So with 100, you have to add so much heuristic that you drop the learning capability away. So also the IT needs to evolve further to really to enable this learning capability.
Certainly, yeah. Right. Any other comments?
I can only add that this cognitivity and learning capabilities coming in SON is the natural evolution of SON features. I was asked by some of my communication, in charge of communication people in Orange, can we say that SON is the first artificial intelligent software in radio? Right. You know, we need to say as Orange that we are doing artificial intelligence. I was a little bit not familiar with exactly what we mean by artificial intelligence exactly in the world. Just not to say yes, we have some intelligence in the network by itself, and that's it. So I have come to the conclusion that with these learning capabilities, and we will start to do what we would call artificial intelligence. Before, it's more automatic scripting. It's some kind of intelligence, but it's not yet. We are not at the full potential of what we can do with the algorithm, and it will be clearly a natural evolution. It will be the intention of all the CSON actors to enter in this domain, also to maybe get some more revenue because it needs some more inputs, it needs some more processing to do that. I'm sure that it's something which will come, and I'm sure that it will come before 5G.
Right. That reminds me of an interesting episode I had. You know, as Nokia designers of SON, we thought we knew everything, right? So one of the customers I met, could have been Orange, I can't recall. But one of the first questions they asked me was, why do you have so many parameters that you have to configure on your SON system, right? Every use case has few parameters, some cases more than we'd like to have, but we do have all these parameters, thresholds, counter names, values. They said, why isn't your SON software smart enough to figure out the values automatically, right? Go measure something in my network, go look at the configuration of my network and figure out what those parameters should be. Why are you asking a human to kickstart the automation, right? You need some inputs to kickstart the automation, but why don't you figure that out also yourself? So I know we have a lot of questions we can ask and continue this panel for the rest of the day, but I already got the 5-minute sign maybe 6 minutes ago. So I'll stop here, but give the audience a chance to ask any last questions. If not, we'll maybe, feel free to talk to the panelists over the break. But if there are any last questions, let's see if the panelists have some answers for you. Okay, there's one question there, I believe.
Before a preparation to 5G, do you think that the NFV and SDN must be available until that time? Because as the service provider, for us it's not good thing to the NFT and SVN, because our integration and also the support will go very low down. So it's not good thing. But for NFV side, operators are leading all these items. So is there from your side, are you guys pushing for the NFV until the 5G is ready?
Maybe I will start.
Can I give our view at least? If you speak about NFV in the radio access, probably there's a need for a technological step to push it. So it could not be that easy to have NFV on the existing, on the technology that already have a very wide deployment. So, but if we speak NFV as technology in general, this is 5G. So if we disregard the pure radio, new radio technology, new radio access, NFV could become earlier, and NFV and SDN are part of the what I called earlier 5G framework. So the answer is yes. But if you speak about strictly speaking about radio, this would not come that easily, because especially for operators that have a wide deployment, and the transformation and substitution of what is already there is quite difficult. So we need justification for new technology support.
Vincent, you have a comment?
Yeah, in fact, at group level in Orange, we are pushing a lot to have this NFV inclusion in radio, and we are preparing for that. But in terms of investments, when it comes to the affiliate to invest in a new way of deploying the network, it's much more difficult. So we understand that with 5G it will be a must-have and it will be native. So maybe with the deployment of 5G as an additional layer, it will come natively, and we will prepare a little bit more with that, with LTE advanced, something like that. But I don't see in 2G, 3G, and even current LTE networks movement in the coming years to go for it.
Very good. So with that, let's wrap up this panel. Thank you, Vincent, Jarno, and Andrea, for joining us here today. And I'm sure networks are going through a major disruption, transformation, and we all in this room have to make sure SON is an anchor in this transformation. So hopefully we'll see a lot of changes here, and SON staying the constant. So thank you all for joining us today, and hope you had a good session with us and learned a little bit about SON's transformation to 5G and cloud. Thank you.